Todo ano a gente traz
Every year, we bring to this lecture at the Arab Brazilian Chamber the latest discussions that are happening at the Center for Arab Studies of University of São Paulo. Since we have a Center for Arab Studies in a country that is not Arab, in Brazil, we're always greatly concerned and focused on the matter of relations, the so-called East-West relations. And we will be discussing these relations from the viewpoint of demystification, because there has been a trend throughout history, for century upon century, of dividing the world, of looking at the world divided in two parts, in this case, East and West. This relationship is based on a composition we make between us and them, an opposition that basically comes along with human history itself, by making this division between East and West, through literature, through the arts, through painting and so on, attributing characteristics that would be inherent to one or the other. The conversation today will bring the latest discussions we have had regarding this demystification. So, to begin with, we'll show that there are actually various instances in contemporary history in what is happening today that demystify this idea of certain values attributed to the East or to the West. For example, democracy, which is traditionally attributed to the West and as being something that would be incompatible with the East. In this case, we begin, for example, by looking back at the origin of Islam to show the lines of thought that are present since the origin of Islam, identifying the ones that have a democratic line, such as pro-initiative or free-thinking, which are then considered the basis for a development that could represent the development of open debate, exchange and democracy, and so on. And also, at the same time, we see lines of thought which are absolutely contrary, which are also present since the beginning of Islam. In reality, this exercise could be performed with regard to various religions, schools of philosophical thought, and so on. In this case, we'll be doing it with regard to Islam, which is a basic theme in East-West relations, to the extent that it identifies the East with Islam, while the East could easily be identified with other things, other peoples, other regions, because, after all, it is a part of an intellectual exercise that has been ongoing and permeates various aspects of contemporary life. In the media, we see this automatic division being used. We see an almost automatic identification of these negative aspects, lack of development, violence, intolerance, being associated with the so-called other, the so-called East. This is one example of what we'll discuss today. There is also no way to leave out what is currently happening in Europe, which is the so-called refugee crisis. In fact, it is being discussed as though it were new, forgetting that Syrian refugees have been entering Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan and Egypt since 2011-2012 and are doing so by the thousands. There are already 2 million Syrian refugees in Turkey and a little less in other countries, but it's still a lot. And now suddenly the media seems to be waking up as Europe wakes up to a so-called refugee crisis. So we'll be discussing all of this. We'll go back and forth in time, back and forth in history to make reflections we are currently making today at the Center for Arab Studies of University of São Paulo.
Os árabes da USP.